Are we live? I
We
think
are
we're live.
we're very live,
Hello.
and it's bright out.
It is so far.
The
Yeah.
sun just came out. I'm like Peter Murphy. I don't want to be seen in the light. You know?
Bright light.
Can I put curtains up? It's too bright.
The thing
Usually
is,
I'm in here. It's
you're so used to going live at night time, it
yeah,
wouldn't normally be seen as an issue. But I'm the same. I've got daylight behind me still as well. It's almost 7 p.m. here, but it's still daylight outside.
yeah. It's like 6:40 over there. You got another 20 minutes of enjoyment.
Pretty much. It's been
How are you,
happening.
young lady?
I'm all right. I feel like we haven't spoken for an age. It's
I
been
know.
ages.
I love these roundtables.
Um,
And with
yeah,
time, I think when people jump into these chats on a regular basis, and the key thing is consistency. We haven't been consistent on this, but
totally not
um,
consistent at all. I
we
was
have a
having
love
a
for music.
I was having a little look back, and I think the last time we had a chat was like September,
Yep.
and then the last time we had one prior to that was like July with Cliff.
Yes. Yes. The
So
professor of the old school.
we
Yep.
have not been consistent. You're right.
Yeah.
Need to get our
Just
act together, Jim.
I know. Yeah. I always do one of these. Give me your
I
hand, Helen.
know.
Give me your hand. Give me your hand. There you go. Love doing that. Meetings are good sometimes.
hmm
I'm old school. Sometimes I roll like that, but it's all good.
So for people who aren't familiar with what this is, we basically chat about music stuff, and it's usually a group of music geeks talking about music stuff. Today, so far, it's just the two of us, but other people are welcome to pop in if they're
Yeah.
so inclined. Um, anything particular you want to talk about, Jim?
My goodness, because this is total improvisation 101, which I love. And guys, do me a favor, if you're not following and subscribing to this talented woman right here, Miss Helen Wallace, she's also the host of Helen's Mixtape on
Helen's
365
Mixtape.
Radio. That's right. Hello, this is Major, and you're listening to Helen's Mixtape. You know, you know, it, it's EQ'd, but anyway, no.
It nearly
Helen,
came through my nose.
I'm sitting there listening to her whenever my bosses aren't around, I listen to her show on Thursdays on the 365 radio app. And it's just like all of this like vintage old school stuff that brings back memories for me. But then occasionally she'll pop in some new stuff like Slow Readers Club and some other stuff. And then all of a sudden the song is like playing loud. All of a sudden, that was Empathy Test from their latest release. And it's like really quiet. And all of a sudden, the next song comes on. Okay, and next song, we're going to play some Ultravox from 1983. And then all of a sudden, boom, it goes into like heavy, like, you know. But we're just going to talk about music today, I guess. I mean, like I said, it's improvisation 101 at its
Well,
best.
you mentioned Solo Readers Club.
Yes.
I just went to see them live a couple of weeks ago.
Tell us about that gig. Tell our audience.
They were absolutely superb. I mean, the venue wasn't a particularly large venue, and it's actually not a venue I'd been to before.
It looks so intimate. I love that.
I'll tell you what was annoying. I tried to live stream it
Mm-hmm.
from my phone, but all I was getting was a black screen. So I
Oh.
wasn't seeing anything. I didn't think it was going out. So when I looked back on Twitch, it actually had gone out, but I couldn't see anything. It was just a black screen. So that was slightly annoying. I need to figure out what's happening with the Twitch app. But do you know what I discovered at that gig, Jim? I am too old to be standing on a concrete floor for 90 minutes.
You're getting
my back was killing me afterwards.
Your feet and your legs.
My back was just
lower
gone.
back.
It was gone. I was like, oh man.
You were probably like this, walk around the next day.
Absolutely. And there's not a seat to be seen. Not a single seat in the whole place. Nothing.
No. A lot of those places are standing room. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that when I saw Midge play over at Summerfest in Milwaukee, Granted, they have, as you saw in the pictures, they have benches there. The thing is that when you go to Summerfest, nobody ever sits on those benches. People literally stand on the bleachers so you get a better view. And you saw we were very close to Midge, and but everyone stands, whether you're 10, you're 40, you're 60. Everyone, including myself, and did my feet and did my knees feel at after a while? Yes, and I couldn't balance as good as I used to either.
It's been a while since I've been to a venue where it's been a concrete floor. Normally it's wood or there's some kind of give, you know.
Right.
This was concrete. I was just like, oh no. And I had a pair of Nikes on, I had a pair of trainers on, my back was still
Okay.
gone.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is when you go to these gigs, whether it be concrete or I mean, obviously, or even outdoor terrain, wear comfortable shoes. Don't be that girl or guy, wearing like fancy dress shoes or wearing heels if you're a gal, whatever. Just just stick to gym shoes. I mean, don't wear like fuzzy slippers like this. Don't do that. That's when you're cold and downstairs in a basement like this thing here is. But when you're doing a music festival, like if you're doing Isle or if you're doing Pitchfork or if you're doing Riot Fest or if you're
Or if you're
doing
doing a festival, you need to be in a pair of wellies. You need to be in a pair of like walking boots or something waterproof.
wear either those or wear your worst gym shoes.
Mhm.
Worst. Because I guarantee if
Get
you buy a
trashed.
new pair of gym shoes, they're going to be gone, even if it's not raining.
Mhm.
And at the Hot Chip was it Cut Copy and Hot Chip played back to back at Pitchfork. It was one of the most fun mud pits I've ever seen in my many years of
But
going to a concert.
there's something about the smell of a festival at the mud. It smells like it's like a mixture between like rancid like booze and
Yes,
if it rains, it's like that.
it's a giant ashtray that happens to be set up. It seems like it smells like a soggy wet ashtray with a
It's
lot of beer
ugh.
sprinkled in.
Yeah, it's
But
horrible.
the visual of watching people try to navigate and fall into the mud, priceless if you're on
I've
the
been so lucky recently in the past few years that if I'm ever at a festival, I'm not actually in with the crowd. I'm up at the side of the stage. I'm not in amongst all that,
right.
gunk, but
Yeah,
the smell still hits you. That kind of rancid,
it does. You get
boozy.
immune to it, sadly, when you drink a little. Not that I did that. There was a great band out of the UK that played over there last year. Name escapes me. They do a song called Scratchyard Lanyard, and it wasn't Animal Collective, it was somebody else. I don't have my notes, but I do have my notes over there, about 50 feet away. But anyway, there was this area where we stood, which was grassy and higher, and then right like 6 feet in front of us was just a solid path of mud, and it was just fun watching people slip, fall, you know. And the music was good too, so kind of a win-win.
Like I say, it's not the dirt, it's not the mud that's the problem for me. It's that is what's in the mud.
The smell, yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah. I
people
don't want to.
people
It's not like I
people
fall into it or
people
nothing.
urinating in it, people spilling their booze in it.
Yeah, that's one of the weird things is that luckily places like Riot Fest, Pitchfork, they have tons of porta potties over there, and I mean I know there's like crowds upon crowds of people, but I don't recall or seeing anybody ever urinating in their empty beer cup or just going wherever. But I'm sure it's had happened. I
This
just never.
conversation's just taken such a turn, hasn't it? I'm
Oh, it's
so
going
sorry.
south. No, seriously. I mean,
The
like
festival
you mentioned the
experience.
smells. The urine and the pee has to come from somewhere.
Mhm.
It's not like there's porta potties right next to the stage. They're
Mm-mm.
way the heck in the back.
Mhm.
But welcome to Porta Potty Talk here on
I know, right?
with Radio Leggy and Helen's Mixtape.
Helen's Mixtape.
Hi, this is Jim Surin, and whenever I'm not, whenever I'm observing people urinating at a public music festival, I listen to Helen's
Helen's
Mixtape.
Mixtape.
Helen Cheeks. I don't
Okay,
care if
I'm
you're
gonna record. I'm gonna take a recording of that. I'm gonna snip it. I'm gonna
Oh
put it
God,
in my.
I would do that in a second. Hi, this is Jim Surin, known as Jim in Chicagoland from Twitch. And whenever it's Thursdays, I tune into Helen's Mixtape. What's the name of that band? Now it's starting to
That's
tick me
funny.
off. They were super good. Boy, and of course now everyone decides now's the time to start DMing me. All right, go away.
Mr.
Um,
Popular.
God,
All
no,
your
I'm not.
DMs.
2021, 22. No, it's my music nerd friends. They went to go see Always, or no, Yola Tango. They saw Yola Tango Saturday. They saw the Beths the weekend before, and the weekend before that they saw Always.
Hmm.
And yeah,
So
ooh,
what's on your agenda for live music then, Jim? What are you
oh
planning
my
on seeing?
goodness, this year, I did secure passes to the Pitchfork Music Festival here in Chicago. For the uninitiated and those not familiar, Pitchfork has been around for about 16 years. It started out as an independent festival with some touch with Pitchfork. Pitchfork's kind of the, you know, kind of a online music review thing and all of that stuff. And originally it was called the Intonation Music Festival. It was a 2 day event. It was in a little place called Union Park that holds about maybe 20,000 people, 10, 20,000 people, somewhere around there. And it was a very small event. There weren't many people there to speak of. And then Pitchfork, they do like their online reviews and stuff, they kind of took control of it. And their marketing people and their PR people got out and they got more on the edge or emerging artist bands that were about to come into fruition. Bands like LCD Sound System, stuff like that. I mean, God, Kendrick Lamar played there one year. Bjork played there. I mean, God, I'm looking at another one here. I mean, God, Brian Wilson was there. I mean, they bring back some like retro stuff too, just for the
Hmm.
fun of it. Bands like Beach House out of New York, a two-piece band. They had who else was there off the time? Vampire Weekend before they got popular. They were on at like 2 in the afternoon, 2:30 in the afternoon in 2011, and then they went on to, or those at 2007, 2008 maybe. 2011 they were a headlining band 3 years
Hmm.
later. So Pitchfork is my main love, and there's an example of one of the little.
Hang on a second. Wait, hold it up. Wait a minute. We can be art. There we go.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. This is 2019, and I don't know if this is going to show up good or not, but they have everything but the bands on here where I like to show the band lineup here. It was hit or miss. They had the Isley Brothers. I mean, they had, Mavis Staples. They had Nana Cherry. They had Crunch Bin, JPEG Mafia, Stereolab, Freddie Gibbs, among others. Parquet Courts is another exceptional band. This is from 2019, and Kurt Vile was there. Pardon for my
So
crappy
so
camera.
just before all the COVID nonsense then, really, I
You
guess.
got it.
Probably the
Yep.
last one before, yeah.
And then 2021, it came back, obviously.
Hmm.
But it was kind of it was some of the bands that were supposed to be there in 2020 before COVID hit, and others that did not commit and they kind of backed out. Phoebe Bridgers, Big Thief, Animal Collective, Fiery Furnaces, Bartees Strange. I don't know if anyone's heard of Bartees Strange. He is just spectacular. An artist named Yves Tumor. He's kind of the modern day version of Lenny Kravitz. A little bit more cutting edge, a little more avant garde. St. Vincent, outstanding. Annie Clark. Wait, I don't, my camera sucks. There we go. But anyway, St. Vincent was there. The National was there last year. And I'm a big National fan. As I had mentioned, LCD Sound System, Solange, Tribe Called Quest, Dirty Projectors, Danny Brown, Thurston Moore, who I strongly suggest you not see live, was by himself. When he's with Sonic Youth, very good, but by himself, I would not
Mm.
recommend it. But I have literally, here's a 2012. I mean, this thing's ancient. There was somebody on the small side stage that seated about, not seated, but maybe 1,000 people can fit in there. Purity Ring, Grimes, Japan Droids from Vancouver, Hot Chip, Cults, a great death metal band in Atlas Moth, love them. And if you look really close, middle of the afternoon on Sunday in 2012, there was some guy named Kendrick Lamar.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody ever heard of that guy, but he was on the small stage and he was up against Beach House, who's on at like 5 in the afternoon. So it's fun to see emerging new bands.
Progression. Yeah.
coming along before they get popular and they go to Lollapalooza and they're about that big at Lollapalooza. And they try to fit 90,000 15-year-olds inside a Grant Park along Chicago's lakefront, which is a atrocity. And I've not gone to Lollapalooza since 2005.
It's like when I had seen Churches in that tiny little venue in Edinburgh, Electric Circus. Tiny
Yes.
little venue. Before they were known.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just exploded. And I'm like, telling people like these guys are going to be huge. They're going to be huge next year. They're all over everything, And 10 years
Right.
down the line, they're massive.
But isn't it cool to say that you saw somebody who was in a small club or was
But if
playing in the
somebody's
old...
got it, Jim, it doesn't matter how big the audience is. That comes across. Do you know what I mean?
Right. It
If they've
makes an
got,
impact. I
they've
mean,
got it. They've got it. Yeah.
I mean, name some of the. I mean, Helen, tell me or tell our audience as well. Tell us some of the bands that you saw before they became big that really hit home up here and in here.
Well, Churches is the one that immediately
Mm-hmm.
springs to mind. That was a big, impact. Like I say, I can be talking, but more recently, actually, and I hate to bang on about it, Slow Readers Club, Empathy Test. I've seen them both within the last few months.
Right.
And to be honest with you, the turnout in Edinburgh for the Empathy Test gig was really poor. Like I expected it to be a much, but it was a
Really?
midweek. It was like I can't remember if it was a Monday or a Wednesday. It was like a day. It was a weekday thing,
Yeah.
And that was really unfortunate because, and and this is another thing that venues that do this really annoy me. They will there'll be an early curfew to get people out because they'll have like a club night or something happening.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no turnaround time.
Right.
So the audience are kicked out. There isn't any chance to kind of like stay back and chat or
Talk about the show. Right.
Yeah, there's none of that. You're like 10:30, boof, get out the door kind of thing. Hurry up and move. And of course, the band are standing at the merch stall trying to talk to people, trying their best to get the selfies in or whatever.
Right.
It's actually quite funny. There's a couple of people who came over and asked me as soon as they realized, oh, you're Helen on the radio. And you know what? I still don't know what happened to those people. I don't know if those photos are on Facebook or what, but came over and wanted a selfie with me. I'm like, okay, but they didn't know who I was because it's Helen on the radio, right? So they know the
So they
voice.
didn't. Okay.
And someone said, oh, that's Radio Leg, that's Helen on the radio. And they're like, oh, and came right over for us.
So someone actually came up to you and recognized you at a gig. How cool is that?
That happens a lot.
That is so cool.
It happens a lot because of the previous, not because of the radio stuff, but because of the photography stuff. I mean, I've had people recognize me photographing.
Right.
Yeah, I've had. Did I ever tell you about the cabbie? Did I ever tell you the story about the cab driver?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so I live in Edinburgh, right?
Right.
And sometimes I photograph gigs elsewhere, and I had photographed OMD in Glasgow, right?
Oh, nice.
John Fox was supporting them, and OMD English Electric Tour.
Oh my God,
right?
I've never seen them.
So I've obviously in the Glasgow concert halls, there's no like pit, there's no like photo pit. You're kind of almost upon the people at the front stage. It's like a concert hall rather than an actual. It's hard to explain it. It's all like laid out like an orchestral, like a concert hall, right? It's kind of circular, the seating and stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to explain it unless you see it inside. But you try your best. You're in there. You're trying to be as subtle as possible without being seen, right? And you just assume nobody notices you. So a few weeks later, I'm in a cab in Edinburgh, and the cabbie asks me what I do, and I'm like, oh, I'm a photographer, and he's like, were you that lassie that was photographing OMD?
That lassie.
I was like, geez, you think you're being like subtle and not like being seen by the crowd?
It's not like going like, hey, don't you know who I am? It's not like you're doing that.
And actually, for the most part, I'd actually stayed up near the desk, near the sound desk and lighting desk up near the back. I hadn't really been down the front very much, but obviously enough to be noticed. I was mortified. I was like, that was me.
That is hysterical. Yeah. I love that though. But I mean, think about the things that you do there. Obviously, you're doing your live streaming thing on 365 Radio. You're doing photography, all these huge gigs for these significant bands and artists. Somewhere, somehow, with the thousands of people that you are connecting with, you're going to run into somebody.
Oh yeah, that used to happen. Well, you must be the same, Jim, with Periscope. No. I used to get recognized all the time from Periscope.
Oh God, I don't. I mean, the The meetups, I would say, would be the
Oh, I'm
one.
not I didn't go to any meetups. I'm talking about randos, like random.
Oh, I mean, people on the streets of Chicagoland never. I mean, I think maybe once somebody ran into me at a beer festival,
No,
and
this
then
that is so
it's not
weird.
like they could buy me drinks because all the beer's free already. And they're like, "God, if I could buy you a pint, I'd buy you a pint." I forgot the guy's handle. He was there with his fiance, and he's like, "You know how many years I've watched you? You know how fun you are, and you're putting up all that crap with your daughter's seizures, and you still smile and you support people. How do you do it?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It gets my mind off of." At the time, I used Periscope to get my mind off of life,
Of course.
and it was
Escape.
escape for me because I had no control about my daughter's seizures. I didn't have her daughter, any control about what her story was with her, with her cancer and all that stuff, with her leukemia. I had no control of that whatsoever. But once we turned the corner and we got the law passed, which we streamed live on Periscope with the governor here in Illinois, things began getting traction, and
Do you
that's
want to just
when.
explain? Because obviously some people who are listening to this might
Oh,
not know what that law was, Jim. So do you want to
oh,
just
yes,
if you could just recap that for
yeah.
people who don't know?
So I'll do a Cliff Notes version of it. That's my old radio name in college, Cliff Notes mornings. Hi, everybody. Cliff Notes with you. Weekdays, 6 to 10 on the Source, WCRX, Chicago. Check your body. Check your body. Check your body. Okay. Anyway, I was afternoon drive, actually. So basically, I discovered Periscope back in 2015, and this is back in my daughter was diagnosed with cancer. She had leukemia back in 2008. She went into remission in 2011. She's cancer free now. But unfortunately, one of the chemo treatments that she had was a lower spinal injection. It was a spinal injection, and it was I think it was called methotrexate. They do a lower spinal injection of chemo into her lower back because blast cells or cancerous cells tend to hide in and behind your spine going up to your neck. So they did a spinal injection so it would get in there, get all those blast cells out of there. Sadly, the dose of it was a little bit higher than we thought. It traveled to the back of her brain, and at the age of 3, she seized. She had breakthrough seizures, mal seizures for about maybe 8 years. With little or no notice, 1 to 3 times a day, she'd be at school. She'd be non-responsive. Her eyes would roll to the back of her head. She'd have a full body drop. She could be walking and then just collapse. So we tried all these different Western meds. Before the disclaimer, Western meds have done many great things for many, many people. It just didn't happen to work for our family. I mean, you could pretty much wallpaper our entire house with all the meds we brought our daughter up and down on. None of them worked. Instead, they had adverse side effects. I could obesity, aggressiveness, lack of appetite. She broke my hand. I was trying to help her on Thanksgiving night with something, and she swatted at me, and she hit me, knocked my glasses off, hit me a second time, and dislocated my finger. So it's like, okay. So 10 weeks with that, no volleyball, no softball, none of that. But then the final straw was one day in 2018, was it? Yeah, June 2nd, 2017 was the last straw. We were grocery shopping. My wife, I wanted to give her a break, let her just chill and relax. My daughter and I went out grocery shopping. We forgot to get spaghetti sauce. Went to one last aisle to go pick up that spaghetti sauce. My daughter's pushing the shopping cart. She went straight back and hit her head on a concrete floor in a grocery store in the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday. There was some bleeding there. It was starting to get towards her brain. And luckily, we had brain surgery where the doctors went in that night or the next day rather, and they pretty much sucked up all the blood from getting to her brain, creating any damage. They terminated the area where the bleeding was coming from, and she had the bandage on her head for a couple of weeks, and she healed fine. She's had.
Terrifying though.
Oh
Scary.
yeah,
Hmm.
that was the last straw. That was the last straw for us. We were tired of these Western meds and the side effects. They weren't doing anything to help her stop or reduce the severity of her seizures. If anything, it made it worse. So we heard through word of mouth and through internet groups and through some friends of ours about medicinal cannabis. Patches and tinctures, with a little pen with like a little syrupy stuff with little THC in there, mostly CBD based. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna go see some freak of nature witch doctor. And I'm like, whatever. I've never gotten high in my life, and neither has my wife. We're gonna hear what these witch doctors say, you know. I'll sit there and I'll drink my beer, but I'll never smoke weed or nothing because my parents smoked cigarettes in the house for 20 whatever years I lived at home, and it was gross with ashtrays everywhere.
Mhm.
So we went to see Dr. Tony Bark, who worked with Western, healthcare providers for 20 some years, and she got fed up with the system too, and she decided to experiment with medicinal cannabis. And she was like a physicist. I mean, she was into oncology, she was into neurology, she knew everything about every kind of blood cancer under the sun. And she took Ashley Dawn off those Western meds, gave her a little patch the size of a, like a size of a band-aid, like that big. We put on her foot twice a day, and then we do like a little pen with a little tincture, little syrupy tincture. We put on a dark chocolate chip, and that's an oral med that lets her sleep better at night. And that combined with a keto diet, less processed foods. I'm eating all the processed foods for her now. A lot of Mickey D's, a lot of Taco Bell, all those good old fashioned American fast food establishments. I'm eating
Mhm.
those now. But we kept Ashley off of that, and really limited her intake of that stuff. And by the following, we started her on medicinal cannabis in maybe September, October of 2017. By March of 2018, she was completely off of her Western meds and strictly on medicinal cannabis patches and tinctures. And problem was is the schools would not allow her in because here in the U.S. It is a class 3 felony to have any kind of cannabis on school grounds. So whether it be a patch or a tincture or a gummy or whatever, it's not allowed on school grounds anywhere in the country, let alone Illinois. So our daughter was being denied an education. We spent Christmas and holiday break seizure free with her, and it worked perfectly. She was starting to talk more. She was more responsive. Gradually, she was walking independently. She was in a wheelchair for a while, but she was fine. Problem was the schools wouldn't let her in, and we had no other choice but to hire an attorney and sue our school district and the state of Illinois because of them denying my daughter the right to an education. And the teachers, the principal, the superintendent were all on our side, believe it or not. They were all in favor of. They were so happy to see Ashley seizure free.
Mhm.
They could do their curriculum without Ashley, seizing or being
Mhm.
non-responsive. Having an EMT show up and have an
Mhm.
ambulance driver to the hospital once a
'Cause
week.
that must have been terrifying for the staff as well.
Yes, because it was their liability as well.
Mhm.
She'd be in the nurse's office, or and there were some cases the principal would go in the EMT truck with Ashley to the emergency room. And that happened on a couple of occasions, and she doesn't have time for that. That principal and those teachers have other students that need to be taken care of. And they understood that now that Ashley was seizure free, there weren't any interruptions. It was a win for them and a win for us. So the school district was on our side completely, as was the state of Illinois. Lisa Madigan's assistant, she's the attorney general here in Illinois, serving, or who had served under Governor Ronner at the time, was on our side too. Had like a little powwow before we went into the federal court building for the hearing, and everybody was on our side. We were laughing, cracking jokes, having fun. Ashley was being watched at school, obviously. It was just me and my wife, Maureen. And the judge basically looked at us, Judge Blakey said flat out, he goes, well, it's not like your daughter is rolling up a joint and using job rolling papers in grade school. It's not like she's doing a bong hit in math class. He goes, I'm going to issue a temporary restraining order that will allow your daughter back into school, but it's going to be temporary. So it's a TRO. And we're like, well, how can we make it permanent? And the judge says, well, you've got some homework to do. And I'm like, what are you referring
Well,
to?
that was helpful.
Yeah. He goes, I'm getting your daughter back into school, but because this is on a state and federal level, as a judge, I cannot help you. He goes, you have to create a law. So word got out. We went downstairs from the 16th floor of the federal court building to a sea of reporters and media. CNN, USA Today, WGN here in Chicago, the Chicago Tribune, Sun Times, among others. All of the ABC, CBS, NBC, all the U.S. networks were in. And when we were going down the elevator, I looked at my attorney because I used to do internships, and I used to do I was on the side of where the media pool was, and I had to do I had the one that had to hold the camera, and I had the one that had to do the lights or the boom mic. I go, you guys ready for the little media fiasco? And my attorney Stephen Gling just smiles, and he's like, yeah, because his eyes are green. He's
Mhm.
just like, this is gonna be a effing load of money for
Mhm.
that's what he's thinking. So we go down this elevator, we open the door, and I go, and we turn the corner, and I go, lights, cameras, and we turn the corner, bam, sure enough, they have the pool feed, like the pool, like the rope that separates the media from where we're walking.
Mhm.
And all the lights come on, all the reporters, all of the journalists, all of them come rushing. The boom mics come out, the lights come on. And that's when we started to pursue not just a law for our daughter, but for other children in Illinois who who depend on medicinal cannabis to regulate their childhood illnesses, whether it be Crohn's or ADHD or epilepsy, whatever. We wanted to make sure it was, blanketed and encompassing every child whose parents have to be caregivers for them. And we pushed it through the state and through House and Senate subcommittees. And we went down to the state capitol here in Illinois, in the United States, and we sat in on those votes. And it passed the House and Senate almost overwhelmingly, all but maybe 2 votes on both sides of the aisle, both Republicans and Democrats. And I hate politics with a vengeance. But this was something where you don't see this on mainstream media.
Mhm.
Mainstream media, it's like a lot of finger pointing.
Mhm.
It could be, the Tories and whoever over there, or here it's the Republicans and Democrats. You know what I'm saying? But behind the scenes,
Mhm.
they're all laughing, having a good time. There's no backstabbing. They're actually cooperating. It was bipartisan. They're at the same pub after their vote session. They're at
Always.
the same pub where I went to go get my Abel, Obel and Abel's microbrewery in downtown Springfield, 3 blocks from the Capitol. They were all there. Mark my word, I got pictures to prove it. And everyone got along. It wasn't like a
Yeah,
bunch of
that's something that people don't understand. It's the same
yeah,
over here as well. They're all hanging out in the House of Commons bar with
yeah, they're
their
human,
yeah, with
right?
their what's the word? Subsidized. With their
Yes.
subsidized meals and their subsidized booze.
Yep.
The taxpayer.
And who pays for it? You and
Absolutely.
me.
100%. Yeah.
So, Madam Speaker, blah 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 blah, all that stuff, and they're
Mhm.
like, ah. I watch the House of Commons on Sundays here in the States, and it's just, I mean, like I said, it's not as fun as over there because those guys, they're just like they'll just sit there and they'll call somebody out right there on the spot. Here, it's a lot of the behind the scenes BS, really slimy car salesman esque.
Mhm.
But the law ultimately passed. It was a Republican here in the States that basically passed the law against his will because he was trying to get reelected, didn't want to lose that vote.
Mhm.
But he didn't take us to the state capitol. He took us to his private office in the state of Illinois building in downtown Chicago because he didn't want his competition to catch it. And he wanted to make sure it wasn't in the news. It was in the news. Yeah, they flew me to New York to be on the Today Show. I was interviewed on CNN. I was on WGN Radio with John Williams, the Tribune, the Sun Times, USA Today, New York Times. All of them interviewed me and my wife, and there was no hiding from it. And then that governor lost to our current governor, J.B. Pritzker, whose family is the heirs of I believe, the Hyatt hotel chain, all the Hyatts around the world. His family runs that, and that's where he's the money and the clout,
They're
as it
all
were.
for money.
And
Again,
I
they're
met
all
both
for money.
governors. They're very cool in person. I interviewed Governor Pritzker on Periscope for about 5 minutes after we did a signing there down in the state capitol. Super nice guy. Talked to a couple of the guys on the other side of the aisle, and they were super cool too. Jim Oberweis, another, he's more of a conservative. And then you have the liberal, J.B. Pritzker, and everybody was very cordial, and they answered a lot of our questions. So that's Ashley's Law.
And breathe.
Or you can just Google Ashley's Law, Illinois,
Ashley's
and
Law.
get a Cliff's Notes version of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the button that we had. That
It's a
was back.
it's a it's a feat though, Jim. It's a hell of an accomplishment, actually.
It's for a lot of kids, and every kid in Illinois that and their parents. Imagine being a single parent with something like that. Like, it's just. I mean, Maureen and I could barely pull that off.
Now, we got into that conversation because of something else, and I've completely forgotten.
Oh, I went off on a tangent because we're talking about Periscope.
Oh yeah.
And when you get into a cab or an Uber or whatever,
Oh yeah.
and then someone recognized you and said,
Oh
"Wait a
yeah. No.
second, you're the lassie that I saw doing
That
that
wasn't
photography."
because of Periscope, but I used to get recognised from Periscope all the time. In fact, a delivery guy turned up at my door one day, right?
Are you serious?
Parcel delivery guy, right? Just delivering the parcel, and he's like, "Oh, you're on Periscope." I'm like, "Aye." He says, "I thought I recognised the name. I thought I recognised you the last time I was here."
That's awesome. Nobody
Oh,
recognizes me
it
in
was
person.
not awesome because then someone on Periscope knew where I lived. It wasn't
Oh,
awesome.
that's creepy.
I was
That
freaked
gets
out.
creepy.
I was
That's where, yeah, that part gets really creepy. That's just wrong. How can I mean, I
I mean, I
know
don't think he would ever have said anything, but it still weirded me out that someone who was watching my periscopes.
knows where you are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the part that kind of freaks me out. There are some people who got to that stalker point where they literally have to leave Periscope completely
Do you know
because
what?
we're
I'm gonna get
consuming their
triggered
life.
because I had a few incidences where I mean, I'm not even talking about that guy. That was just somebody doing their job. But I
Right,
had
of
actual
course.
instances of actual. Let's not talk about that, Jim.
Jim in the special stalking section. Whoop, whoop,
No,
whoop.
I think that was actually more prevalent than we realise.
Oh
And
yeah,
and I don't
yeah,
think the stalking's taken nearly seriously enough, honestly.
yeah. Agreed, agreed. Yeah, fortunately, I've not. I mean, the only time when I would see people from Periscope were, for the most part, through meetups. Because I knew who they were. I've conversed with them.
Mhm.
The first meetup I ever went to really didn't count because it was literally it was tied in with it was kind of a, what do they call it, like a podcast summit. Doug and Allie from the Doug and Allie
Mhm.
Morning Show, Frameable Faces, were there.
Mhm.
There's someone, a social media influencer by the name of Dana Garrison. She was the very person who I didn't have to say anything, and she saw me. And she goes, "JS Scope." And I screamed, and I go, "What?" And then there was Dana Garrison. And I go, "Dana." And she was the first one I met. And I walked in, and Doug and Allie were doing they're on a panel. They're up
Mhm.
on stage in a room with like 100 people, most of them scopers.
Mhm.
And there's Doug and Allie. And then I am about to go live. And back in those days, if you had a phone,
Mhm.
if you were remote, you always went like this. You went landscape. You'd go landscape instead of
Mhm.
portrait.
Mhm.
So I'm about going up to talk with Doug and Allie, and all of a sudden Allie goes, "Jim, nice meeting you. I'm Allie. That's Doug." And then she goes, "First thing you do when you," he goes, "My advice." She grabs my phone and goes, "Go portrait."
I remember that story.
Yep,
Remember you saying that before.
yep. The rest
Yeah.
is history.
I
So,
haven't
but
spoken to Doug and Ally for ages, actually.
I know they're over on
Heckle.
on Heckle, and I've been
Mhm.
meaning to go on Heckle, and I have not. Hi, Brenda.
Hi, Brenda.
One of my mods are in here. Brenda, thank you for modding last night. We had a blast on trivia, even though my audio sucked last night and I had to resort to doing Final Destination. But yeah, that was all the meetups were fun. I mean, it took off from there. I met Chicago Dave. DVS 71 Chicago was his name. He always did his morning herd, as he called it, walking to and from the train station to his office and showing us downtown Chicago. And I met a bunch of Chicago scopers through him. And then after that, we did meetups here in Chicago from 2017, 18, and 19. People came in from South Texas. People came in from Ohio and California. And then I went to other meetups around the country too. I went to one in New York. I went to one in Michigan. Went to one in Los Angeles. One down in Atlanta. One in one up in Minnesota, which was not that exciting. Where else? Phoenix in Arizona. Obviously, that's where I met Cliff, professor of the old school in 18. That was 5 years ago last week, by the way.
That's crazy.
I met Cliff
Time
and
just
Tam Tam.
flies like that, doesn't it? Just flies
So
in
fast. So
so fast.
fast.
Yep.
I can't believe it, and one day I'll get to Scotland. I don't know.
Better.
I know.
It's
I'm just,
it's funny because I never went to any actual like meetups.
yeah.
But when I was thinking about it, I actually met quite a lot of people. Like I went, made a point of meeting them. There was the Canadian guy that was staying in Edinburgh for a few weeks, Bradley, the guitarist,
Oh,
Hugh Burgess.
okay.
Walked across. I was live one day, and he walked across the meadows and just got in the car, and then
Yeah.
we went for a drink, and I went to see a Fringe show together. Just so random. I went to see Andrew in the phone box.
Oh my God. Andrew WK, or Andrew, not new, Andrew in the phone box, A9630.
He every single I don't know if you remember this, but every single time he went live in the phone box,
Yes.
someone would say, "Does nobody ever need to use the phone box when you're in there?" Because he's usually in there for an hour and a half or whatever, an hour or whatever. Like, so I decided to drive from Edinburgh to Melrose
Oh my God. No way.
to wait until, oh yeah, I've got this. Do you know what? I should find the video and show you. So I
That's
drove.
awesome.
I drove to the phone box, waited for his stream to be nearly finished,
Right.
and then knocked on the door and said, "Are you going to be much longer? Because some people need to use this phone box." I
And
couldn't
Andrew's
resist it.
probably like, piss off. I'm busy going live.
Actually, no, he weirdly was quite happy to see me, and we went for coffee afterwards, so it was all
Oh,
good.
that's
But
so
it
cool.
was just funny. So I met Andrew, I met Bradley, I met Della Ponce, I
So wait
met.
a second. So did you and Andrew manage to share the phone box together? Did you like interview inside the phone box? I know it's a kind of a cramped space. It'd be
No,
kind of
I
cool.
got in he invited me into the phone
That
box.
would be cool.
No, I was. Do you know what? I'll find the video, Jim. Right?
I know it's tight,
You keep
but
talking for a second while I try and find the video, right? Because I know I've got it
yeah,
somewhere. Hang on.
yeah. I would love to see that. That would be so awesome. My
Right.
God, that would have been cool to meet
I'm trying to
him.
think. And do you know who I just met up with very recently? In fact, last week.
Oh,
Do you know Johnny, Scottish Johnny, who does the music quizzes?
oh, Maddox, Johnny Maddox, or Johnny
Oh,
Blowtorch?
neither of them. The Scottish one.
Oh, John, just Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny.
Johnny.
Yes.
Oh my God, he is so cool. I love that
I
guy.
met him for coffee last week for the first
That
time. We've
guy,
been talking about doing that for years, and we finally met up and went for a
he's
coffee.
another music fanatic. My
Well,
God,
he might
what
be
was it
going
like
to do.
working with
He might
him?
be going. He might be going to do some jukebox jury with us. So that'll be cool.
Oh, that would be awesome. I have to find my hit or miss thing here. I have it somewhere. I have
Yeah,
hit or
we need
miss.
to find a time when you're free to do it again, because
I want to do it, but Fridays are bad for me,
I know.
especially at that time of the day. But that's not to say I have PTO time coming up in the spring. And if I do, you know bloody well I'm going to jump on and hang with you guys because you and Jeeves and your crew doing an amazing job. And if you guys are not checking out Helen on selected Friday afternoons or Friday evenings for Jukebox Jury, follow, subscribe to this young woman right here. It's taking kind of an old school format that was originated back in the late 70s, early 80s, and it's being jettisoned into the 21st century here into the 20s. And it's a bunch of cool new and emerging artists that Helen exposes us to, and it's up to the jury if it's a hit or a miss. And it's just and the comments and the reactions, the people's faces between you and you're like of everyone in the jury, Helen, you are the most neutral. You don't show any emotion at first. You're like this. And then you see like
Because
Jeeves,
I'm just trying to listen to it. Really, I'm just trying to analyze it.
and
Honestly.
they're like some people laughing, some people like they're ready to do this, they're like
Okay, but
know.
do you want to know why that is? And I honestly, I haven't really thought about it before, but I think the reason why that is, Jim, is because if someone takes the time to create something
Hmm.
and then they take the time to send it to me,
Right.
who the hell am I to tell them that it's crap or that it's bad or it's. Do you know what I
True.
mean? I'm just one person with an opinion. It might not be my cup of tea.
Right.
That doesn't mean that there won't be an audience for it, and someone else might not love it. So
Exactly.
I come at it from the point of view of kindness. You know, normally when people send me something and I don't like it, I just don't say anything. I don't reply to them at all, and that's me trying to be kind, because why would I reply to them and say, "Oh, this is shit, you should do this," blah blah blah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just wouldn't do that.
Exactly.
So I think that's why I sit there neutral, because I am literally just trying to analyze. There's nothing personal in it for me. If something's good, I'll
Right.
play it. You
Right.
know?
Let me ask you this: how many of those emails or those songs do you get a week that people are like, "Oh, can you play this?" How many? And may I ask that? I'm not going to say yes or
It varies. It
okay.
varies. But the reason I've left it Jukebox Jury to once a month is to give us enough to scroll
Yeah.
through. I mean, sometimes I get a couple a week. Sometimes I get inundated. It depends on, you know, what I've noticed is when my radio show is in the top 10 in the chart,
Right.
I get bombarded with a lot more.
Yeah.
I also get sent a lot from pluggers, and I've discussed this on
Oh,
Jukebox Studio itself. I'm much more inclined to just ignore an email from a plugger if
yeah.
you know,
It's
these
like
people have been.
spam.
Well, these people, it is like spam. They clearly don't listen to the show because they're sending
Right.
stuff that isn't. It's not, you know, compatible with what I would play on Helen's mixtape.
That's right.
So I'm being
Helen's
spammed,
Mixtape.
and they're being paid to do that. You know, artists are paying them,
Mm-hmm.
and I think to myself, well, it's me that's promoting. It's me that's putting this music out there. I'm not getting paid for that. Like, why should you be
Right.
getting paid for sending it to me? The artists should just send it to me themselves. I'm much more likely to open the email in the first place if it comes from the
Yeah.
artists themselves. They're telling me that they are proud of this thing that they've created. You know, send it to me yourself. Don't get a plugger to do it. It really bothers me.
Yeah. I mean,
A
you're
little
you're
bit
getting
there.
solicited for stuff that doesn't fit into your genre of music. If you're going to be playing, stuff like Slow Readers Club, Empathy Test, Ultravox, things like that, or Killers. And then all of a sudden you come in, there's some guy playing some kind of like, all guitar riff, something that's from like America or something like that. It's not going to fly. That just reeks of solicitation.
Well, that's happened in the past Jukebox Jury a couple of times, and I've said, well, clearly, because it's the same plugger, and I said, clearly this person has never actually listened to Helen's mixtape.
Right, right.
Now, I found this video of Andrew. Shall we play this? I know this
Let's
is
check
completely
this
not,
out.
I know this is completely
This,
not music
this
related,
is,
but since how we're talking about Periscope, let's just hang on. How do I do this? If I
let's
take
go a
us
little Wayback
down,
Machine.
if I take us down for a second.
Is watching, and hopefully I'm keeping his spirits up and being happy, and I shan't discuss that call too much more, I don't think, unless you would wish to call back and say that we'll discuss it, but yeah. Okay, so we've only got a few more minutes, I reckon, because normally I stay for an hour in here. There's somebody here. Yeah?
Excuse me, are you going to be much longer on this phone?
Do you want to go in? Look who it is, everybody.
Hello.
It's Helen.
Do you know what? That was it. It was worth it just for that, just for the reaction.
Yes, I'm sure.
Are you going to be much longer? Because some people
no,
need
I'm
to use
not,
this phone
actually.
booth.
Only
No,
2
I'm
more
only
minutes.
winding you up. I'll have to go back and watch the replay. See you later, folks.
Goodbye.
See ya.
Oh well. Off she goes. That's the first. You know her, do you? Yes, I know her. Yes, alright. We shall finish there as it's about 4 o'clock. Thank you for watching. Oh, there's a smell in here now. A positive smell, a pleasant smell, a feminine smell. No, it wasn't actually, it's somebody else. Alright, thank you for watching. Thank you for your hearts and your super hearts. Thank you for your shares and follows and your shares, your follows, your hearts and super hearts. And you will, as I said before, I have a target of 1 million super hearts this month, and that'll help me towards covering all my expenses, etc. I might be somewhere tomorrow, or possibly Tuesday afternoon, but definitely back in the phone box. Definitely back in the phone box on Thursday night. I've not met Helen before, no. Let's make the goal, guys. Jan, thank you. And I'll be back here next Sunday afternoon. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you all later. Bye-bye.
That's hysterical. It's not like you're just hanging out there on the cast. You're like, oh, hello, I just want to say hi. All right, see you
The
later.
thing is, I was really hamming it up in the background, looking at my watch, hoping he would notice me in the background, completely oblivious, totally oblivious to the fact that I'm, And the other thing you don't know is I'm 5'10", right? And I was wearing
You're tall too.
I was wearing Nike Air Force Ones with like an 1.5 inch like thick heel on them.
Yeah.
So I must be about 6 foot. So Andrew's much taller than you think, because Andrew's taller than me. I'm standing up against him in the phone booth.
Right.
He must be about 6'1", 6'2". He's
Okay, so
tall.
he's a little taller than you. Right.
But it's funny the two of us actually managed to squeeze it, because I'm a big girl. We both managed to squeeze in the phone
It's so
box.
wild. No, I didn't realize you were that tall. I thought you were like
Yeah.
5'4", 5'5", 5'6", but if you're 5'10",
I'm
that's cool.
5'10",
I'm 6'4".
I'm a big girl. Yeah, you and your
But that sucks though. And thank you for the nice comment in the comments field. It says here, this stream is like the old Periscope. Thanks for keeping the movement of personal streaming alive. Well, thank you for being a part of it. We can't do this without viewers. And Tony D's in the house. What's up, Tony? Yeah, I could touch the ceiling if I really wanted to, but I won't.
I feel like there's a song in there somewhere.
What? I'm
You
tall.
can touch the ceiling. Like it sounds like a combination.
You can.
Touch the sky. Dancing on the ceiling. It feels like there should be like a song in there somewhere.
Hold on.
It's funny how this is meant to be a music chit-chat and we haven't talked about music at all.
Here, see, this is the ceiling.
Yeah, but how low is the ceiling though, Jim?
Huh?
Yeah, but how low is the ceiling? That's the question.
It's low. It's a drop ceiling because we redid the downstairs here. It was all unfinished. Now it's all finished and everything. And this is my office / studio. Elmer's Brewing Company, all that. I was dancing on the ceiling. Thank you very much. Thank you. That video with you and Andrew was hysterical, though. I love that. That was cool.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else footage-wise that's quite funny. Like I downloaded most of my broadcasts and haven't even looked at them. They're all sitting as zip files in my hard drive.
Yeah, I got to figure out how to save some of those older scopes. I mean, I know that Twitter's getting rid of them or whatever.
Well, my profile's completely gone from Periscope now. They told us it was going to sit as an archive and it's gone.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But it is what it is. But I got the memories in here and in here. And
well, I did a whole Edinburgh Fringe show.
Oh, nice.
I did a whole Edinburgh Fringe show, 24 dates every day at the Edinburgh Fringe. And how do you follow Helen?
There you go.
What's my name on here again? Leggy Lady 01.
That's
that for a minute. I was like, what's my name on here?
There you go. That's how you do it.
My bio link's at the bottom. I mean, you can find all my stuff there.
Yeah, don't follow me. I'm not interesting. No.
Oh, thanks, Brenda. See, someone knows all of the intricacies of the arty-farty, twitchy things, right?
Oh, that's why I love Brenda and I love
I
Trevor.
might have to have a wee chat with Brenda about making her my mod as well, because I don't have one on my channel at all.
Yeah, we have the Quad Mod Squad.
I don't have any. I've always thought if you can't moderate your own shit, you shouldn't be live streaming. But it's totally different to Periscope. Like that was more a case of handling trolls, right?
Yeah.
But on here, it's much more technical. There's much more other things to juggle, especially if you're doing it through OBS. Hi, Nancy.
Nancy in beautiful Wisconsin. How are you?
Nancy, you're welcome to pop in and chat about music if you want. That's the other thing. This was meant to be a music roundtable chitty chat, and we've got talking about other stuff, and we've forgotten to talk about music. Oh, Jim, you've got to watch your time.
but Nancy is a walking almanac of music knowledge. And I got to give my friend Civic Stage Manager Brenda credit. Last night she got a point in Vinyl Destination. She actually not only identified the song, whatchamacallit, by Kiss, she also has the Love Gun album. Shock Me was the name of the song. Nancy had it right. She got it, or Brenda had it right. And she has the Kiss album on vinyl, like I do.
Nice. Jim,
Helen.
just keeping an eye on the clock. You said you were.
Oh crap! Yes, I will. I'm going to extend myself till 45 past the hour.
Awesome. I love that. I've got an extra 10 minutes with you.
For her pleasure. Yes, extend myself for
But
her.
I just noticed that was the time, and I'm like, oh, bugger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's people in here now, and I want to talk music with you. So if let's just. I'm going to bounce this off of you. I'm going to pretend I'm the presenter now. So Helen,
Go on.
if are there any new releases that you're anticipating for this calendar year?
A couple. I think the Depeche Mode album. Although I wasn't particularly impressed with the second single that they've released, but the first one, Ghosts Again, cracking track.
Love it. What's
so
the second single?
I can't remember what it's called, but it's much slower paced, Jim. I decided to not put it on Mixtape. Normally, if I like something, obviously I put it on there, but I decided to leave it off. Slow Readers have released another album. It's new. I bought that on CD at my gig. It's signed. I should have bought two and then gave one away on the radio thing, but finances. I wasn't going to ask them for a freebie. That would be cheeky. So I'm trying to think what else is due to come out.
I'll talk 60s.
Cult with No Name. Cult with No Name are due to release another album.
Okay.
Soon-ish, I think.
Okay.
And they don't disappoint, so that's worth looking out for.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, that's something that, I mean, Depeche's new album, it's darker and slower than I thought. I mean, obviously without Fletch there anymore, they're kind of in this, I think it's kind of in a, what's the best word to describe it? There's some tentativeness. I listened to the album straight through yesterday, and there's some songs that are catchy and some that are, that catch one's attention. There's some that I'm like, how did this even make this album? But the one song on there that really caught my eye, obviously Ghosts Again, the first single is exceptional, but there's another track on there that's worth giving a listen. This is off their new album called Memento Mori, which was released yesterday, I believe. The song I couldn't get was the song called Caroline's Monkey. But there's another good song, Never Let Me Go, which was exceptional. It's the 11 track off that album. Very slow melodic. People are good. The lyrics were okay, but it definitely caught on. And then there's another song called My Favorite Stranger, which also caught my attention.
I can't remember what the second. I feel like I need to go check what the second single was now. Now that you've asked me the question, I feel like I should have known that, and I can't remember what it was called.
But I have to listen to it again, though.
It's just called Memento Mori.
Yes.
No, that's the album.
That's the album, correct.
What's the single? Hang on. My Cosmos Is Mine is the second single.
Oh, yeah, see, I didn't like that song.
No, I wasn't impressed with that as a single, so it didn't get played on Mixtape. But I think for me, it seems like the release was very quick after losing Fletch.
Yeah.
And I honestly didn't really expect them to continue at all, or to at least
Me too.
have a think about that before, or maybe even try to get in touch with Alan Wilder and maybe bring him back in again.
Yeah.
I didn't expect them to just go ahead as a duo.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect them to release anything quite so quickly. So I'm kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like conflicted. I'm glad they're still going.
Right.
And obviously the live band's still the same live band, right? They've always had an additional keyboard player, and they've always had the live drummer, and those guys are the same guys that would normally playing live with them. But I just feel like it's a bit quick, and I don't know if they've been a bit hasty in just releasing whatever they came up with.
It seems it seems like it's rushed. It's
Yes.
almost like they're pushing this thing out there just for the sake of pushing it out there, combined with
Just to remind people that they're still going to go ahead and work, but
yeah, exactly.
I feel like they've just released the first whatever it is. How many songs are on the album? I feel like they've just released the first 8 songs or first 10 songs or whatever it is they've come up with.
Yeah.
Rather than what would normally happen when you're taking 3 or 4 years to make an album is you build a collection of songs and then you pick the best of those songs. It feels like they've just gone ahead and rushed ahead and released the first album. Do you know what I mean? For me.
Exactly. I mean, you'd think they would either do an EP or at least kind of like what Peter Gabriel did. He is releasing individual songs one at a time prior to his tour. He's over in Europe now, but he's coming to the States this summer. I would think Depeche Mode would have done something a little bit more, sequential, like maybe do a couple of singles to kind of create awareness, see if there's interest. And obviously here in the States, Ghosts Again is getting a lot of high airplay here, considering
It's a
that
good song. It's a good song.
it's outstanding. It's outstanding. Yes.
And I liked the video as well. I liked the Fragility.
Well, I haven't seen the video yet.
How both guys look really kind of. I would play it, but it'll copyright strike me.
I know. I'll watch it.
It's different if it's Twitch, but I'm going out to YouTube as well, and I don't want to mess that up.
Yeah, Twitch gets a little bit picky too, unfortunately. They
Well,
get
it mutes it, but it lets it go out live. But I don't want to go in and knacker myself on YouTube. But no, the video for it was good. It was simplistic. It conveyed what it needed to convey, and they weren't afraid to show the fact that they're aging, and that they are becoming older and more fragile. That came off in the video. But I don't know. I mean, I love Depeche Mode, and I don't know if this tour was booked before we lost Fletch and they now feel obliged to fulfill those dates, or if they've gone ahead and booked a tour since losing him. It feels too fast for that. There are bands who are only just doing gigs now that have been postponed since before COVID.
Exactly.
So it feels too soon for it to have been booked since we lost him. It feels like these dates were probably put in place before he passed, and now they're obliged to fulfill them. That's kind of what it feels. But I could be way off. I could be wrong, but that's what it feels like.
Exactly. I'd like to find that out, though.
Me too. I haven't investigated that, and I should have done that before having this chat with you. But that's kind of how it feels.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. That's something that's I'm curious to find out about that. This was ready. Are any of these songs were written with Fletch? That's the other thing I'd like to know. There
hasn't been any indication of that when they've been talking in any interviews or anything. The suggestion is that it's been since losing him.
Right.
It's a kind of reflection of losing him. So I don't know.
That's wild.
It seems super fast to book a whole tour, because these things take months to prepare.
Yeah.
Especially in the aftermath of COVID, when all the postponed gigs are now being slotted into venues where because obviously people lost their dates and they've had to find God, I'm not being particularly articulate today, but an even longer process than it normally would be.
Yeah, it seems it's a combination. It's either you have to just do this on the fly and do it bloody quick, or it's something that, like you said, prior to COVID, it's been postponed 2 or 3 years, and then now they're finally starting to get the bands back together. They're getting their crews back together. They're getting the booking agents to coordinate all of this stuff.
Well, I know bands that have had to postpone gigs 2 and 3 times. Like, I mean, for example, the gigs that Midge is doing in May.
Yep.
Right? Those were meant... So, he did some gigs in London a month or so ago, and that was meant to be the end of the tour, the end of the original tour.
Right.
But because everything's had to be postponed because of COVID, and a couple of times, in fact, that's I'm only just doing it, like, getting around to doing the gigs like 2 3 years down the line.
Right.
And that's he's not alone in that. That's a common thing. Right.
So, and that's provided that he can get his whole bandmates together. When he's here in Chicago and here in the States, it was basically him by himself, and occasionally to have a keyboard guy from Howard Jones's band jump in and help.
Well, that's purely financial.
It's smart, though.
Purely financial, Jim. When he's playing the States or he's playing abroad,
It's smart
He
though.
does solo acoustic because all he's got to worry about is the cost of getting him there, right?
Right. I mean,
And
I'm just happy I got to see him live. I mean, from his perspective, I completely agree with Midge's decision. It's just a difficult one because in his head, he wishes he could have brought the whole band with him. But given the circumstances, at
well, that's
least he was cool enough to come over and
very unusual for him to be able to take the band. I mean,
meant a lot to come see
just
him in person.
just as COVID was hitting, he was in the middle of his New Zealand and Australia tour.
And you were in Australia.
And I was in Australia, and the only date that he didn't get to play was Perth, which is where I was. Right,
Ah,
and there was
what
plans
part
to
of
meet
the
up with the band and the
Oh,
crew and everything, and have a catch up and all that stuff. And
yeah,
that was the gig that got cancelled at the tail
yeah,
end of the tour. But it's very unusual for him to take a full band abroad just because of the cost implications. And actually, he was having a conversation on Friday
yeah,
about how this tour that he's doing for Sounds and Visions, he's doing the two albums, the Quartet and Raging Eden albums,
yeah,
back to back in full, will probably be one of, if not the last full band tour that you'll do, just because it's become so expensive, and obviously not wanting to pass that cost on to the fans and onto the tickets.
right.
It's becoming prohibitive cost wise to actually take a full band on tour, and it's
Yeah,
really unfortunate.
yeah. It's not cheap, but bands that can pull it off nowadays in this day and age, I think this kind of goes back to what we were talking about Depeche Mode. Also, is that we may or may not know if something was planned during the COVID era with Fletch
Mm-hmm.
and a subsequent tour, or if this is something that was in honor of Fletch and it's being kind of done right away to let people know that, like you were saying, that hey, we're still here, we're still
Mm-hmm.
relevant, we're still creating new material, and we're also going to be playing a shut up and play the hit set as well, you know. And the shows in Sacramento and Los Angeles, from what I understand, were outstanding. So I'm kind of kicking myself for not being able to go. But then again, looking at the ticket prices here in the States, 180 US dollars, not exactly something I can part ways with. I just spent 210 US on Pitchfork tickets. That's 3 days of music. So I had to kind of weigh it out that way. And the same thing with The Cure.
But
I
the thing,
loved,
but the thing with Depeche that you've got to remember is obviously
yes.
an arena band and the staging and everything that goes with that tour. I mean, the screen, the size of the screens, the size of the staging,
Yep.
and the last time they did I don't know if no, it wasn't the last tour, the Spirits tour. I think it was one before that. They had this great big massive screen with like Anton Corbijn directed like videos behind it and stuff. Like it's a big
Yep.
production. It's not like a little where they're just taking the band with their instruments. It's a big
Right.
production, and obviously
Exactly.
those costs are passed on to the consumer essentially. I mean, it's
Yeah.
you know
It's not cheap.
I don't I'm not annoyed with the bands. I understand the costs involved in that, the cost implications of that. It's just a shame that you know more bands are going to stop touring just because. I mean, with over here, the whole Brexit thing has massively screwed up, bands that tour for a living.
I couldn't even imagine what that's like right now. I mean, I think our economy here is messed up with Brexit combined with the pandemic. That's just a 1-2 gut punch right there. That's just it's
100%.
horrible.
I mean, it's almost impossible to tour Europe now. There's so much paperwork involved, and then even you can't take your merch with you. You have to post it in advance because of the whole paperwork, red tape trail, money implications. It's just
Oh yeah,
crazy,
it's
and and
ridiculous.
and we've got the Tory government to blame for that. And don't get me started on politics again.
Oh, I know. La 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 la. Good segue because I have about 2 minutes left, and I got taxes I got to get to
I
do in
know
about
you
an
do.
hour.
I know you do,
I
pal.
can't wait. But God,
Get
this
on with
was
it.
fun. I miss you. Miss being on your
I
show.
miss your face. I wish we had our normal, geeky group, but it's maybe as well we didn't, because if we had 3 or 4 people here, we would have been like not able to let you go. It would have been a 3 or 4 hour conversation, because this last hour's just gone boom. It's just
Oh, I
flown.
know. This was just
So
ridiculously quick. It felt like it was like 15 minutes. I wish I could go on for a couple more hours had I not done these stupid taxes,
I
but
know. So next time we'll have to get a
yeah.
hold of Cliff. We'll have
Yep.
to get a hold of, maybe, I don't know if Badges will be up for it. We need to get a hold of Chris Wiegand. We need to get a
Or
hold of
Christina,
Christina, Nancy. We'll have to get a group
Nancy
of
and
us,
Jensen.
right?
I would be
And
down for that. Get
get our
Tony in here. Tony would be fun.
Get our,
Everyone.
get our backsides in gear and get organised.
Yeah.
This was a last minute. Who's up for it?
We winged it.
We totally winged it.
Nothing
No
prepared.
agenda, but it was just nice to, catch up with you because it's been ages.
Likewise. And I
And
appreciate
the last time we spoke, I hadn't even started Jukebox Jury yet. It was a pie in the sky. I was
right
thinking
in
about doing it.
right at the end of that chat, however, you were kind of pitching it to us, and you were looking for some input, some suggestions, and you pretty much you showed the video to us, the original video with John Lydon and his cast of cronies on there, and that was exactly what you envisioned, and that's what I wanted to see, and it's come to life. So, guys in our audience, if you have not caught Jukebox Jury, make sure you are following and subscribing to Miss Helen Wallace, Radio Leggy, and make sure you check out Helen's Mixtape Thursdays over most of that 365 radio network.
Thanks for the plug, Jim. I didn't even pay him to say any of that.
Or you can just read the crap on the bottom of your scroll.
Exactly.
Or you can have my moderator do that for you
It's
right there
all
on
there.
the caption.
Thanks, Brenda.
I couldn't do my cast without Brenda, without Trevor, without Ella, without Tim Conrad, without with Ray of Sunshine, Ray, and of course Wolf Puppy. And then last night we had, like I said, we had the Ray of Sunshine was in there too. We had the Quad Mod Squad last night doing a great job.
Mod Squad. That used to be a hashtag. Hashtag
right.
Quad Mod Squad.
Quad Mod Squad. Yeah.
And I said it without my own teeth.
Yep.
Quad Mod Squad.
Yep.
Okay. I think you need to get going to do your taxes, Jim. I feel really bad for holding you captive, but
they're fascist anyway. All right.
Thank you all for popping in, people. It's so nice to just catch up with you, Jim, and to see you all in the Chit-Chat chats. And Brenda wants to know if you want to do her taxes for her.
I'm hiring a professional, allegedly. Yeah, see how much they swindle out of me here. We'll see.
So if you've nothing else to add, then shall we say cheerio, bye, ta-ta, and wrap it up?
That's it. Thank you for having me on, and thank you to everybody in our virtual studio audience for being a part of our broadcast tonight.
I didn't have you on, Jim. It was a collaboration.
It was a banger. It was fun.
Collaboration time. Collaboration.
Oh God! I want to have that looped on my phone, so if I can't sleep at night, I just hear a collaboration time.
I'm gonna get a T-shirt made. Collaboration.
Ooh, you got to do that. You'd rock that shirt. You would definitely rock that shirt. So
on that bombshell, we're off. Thank you all for popping in, peeps. It was nice to see you all.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.